I want to talk really quick, and this is really like a 90-minute class, but I'm going to condense it into 10 minutes for you guys because it's very important. As we get ready for the new year, if you had a year this year where you really did not achieve the goals that you wish to achieve in your business, and you look at agents around you, we have lots of agents making a ton of money this year. We have many agents making 250,000, 500,000. We have agents making over $1 million a year. So let's say that you're an agent and you struggled this year. You closed 6 transactions and you're looking at the person that is in the office next to you who closed 50 transactions, and you say, I do all the stuff that person does. What's the difference between me and that person? And I have studied high performing real estate agents for more than 20 years of owning brokerages. I am obsessed with I want to know like what makes one agent make $1 million a year and another agent who seems to do all the same things just can't make ends meet. And really what it comes down to, the difference between an agent earning $1 million a year and an agent that's earning $10,000 a year, the only thing that is happening is mindset. The way that the person making $1 million a year thinks. And of course you have to have drive and execute and stuff like that, but none of the other stuff matters if your mindset is not where it needs to be. So I wrote this program. I'm going to develop it into a much longer program. Even today, it's going to be super rushed. But if you want to have a phenomenal 2022, we're going to talk about the discipline of personal mastery. So if you have a vision of where you want to be, let's just say it's huge. You want to make $500,000 this year. You're going to have a vision. Then it's going to have, this is the 5-part process. It's vision, creative tension, internal conflict, finding truth, and then utilizing your subconscious to get you where you want to be. As I mentioned, you will live up to whoever you already believe yourself to be. So in other words, you can't become a $500,000 a year earner until you believe you are that person already. So we're going to talk about the process for creating that. It's vision, creative tension, internal conflict, becoming a truth seeker, and then using your subconscious. So the discipline of personal growth and learning, or personal mastery, is the discipline of personal growth and learning, the ability to continually expand our ability to create the results in life we truly seek. What's cool about personal mastery is even if you didn't do it last year, doesn't mean that you can't accomplish something this year. People with a high level of personal mastery never arrive at a destination, meaning that if you live a life of personal mastery, that you want to master the person that is you, master your mindset and the human being that is you, you're never going to arrive at a destination, because that's what mastery is all about. Like, it doesn't exist. You're always going to be looking to how to improve even more. You have to be in continual learning mode, and you have to be acutely aware of your own ignorance, your own incompetence, and the areas for growth. So I'm going to go through each of the 5 parts. We're going to talk with having a vision. So first, in order to have accomplished something big next year, let's say that your goal is to do $20 million in real estate sales. You have to have a goal. You have to have a vision of where you're moving. Maybe it's, I will help 20 clients buy or sell a home this year. I will become the #1 agent in my marketplace. In order to move through that 5-part process, the first part is you have to have a vision. You can't just wing it. You can't just show up to January 1st without having a defined goal of where you plan on going. So be super clear in your vision. I always say real estate agents who have a unclear or blurry, if you have a blurry vision of where you're going next year, you're going to have blurry results. You're not going to accomplish what you want. So understand what you want, understand why you want what you want, and you've created the first piece of the puzzle, the 5 parts that you have to move through. So #1, have the vision of where you're going. That's easy. Any of us on this call today can just simply create a vision of where we are headed. Next part, the second part of that series is the creative tension. There is no creative tension if we don't have a vision. So creative tension exists between your vision and your current reality. So maybe your current reality is that you sold 5 houses this year, but your vision is you're going to close 20 houses next year. So the tension between the two creates an energy. The gap is a source of energy. And if there were no gap, there would be no need for action to move towards the vision. So that's why the vision is so important, because you can't have the creative tension. You can't create the energy that you will need to move through the process without having the vision first. So first is the vision, then you're going to have some tension, because probably if you did 5 transactions this year and you want to do 20 or 40 next year, there's going to be a tension between where you sit right now and where you want to go. So when you have that creative tension, there's only 2 options. Number 1 is to pull the reality towards your vision, or you can pull the vision towards the reality. So that means that as you get to January or February or March, you have 2 choices. You're either going to move your reality towards the vision. That's how the tension gets resolved. So that's why that energy is so necessary. You're going to either move your reality towards the vision, or you're going to give up. And by giving up, that means that you're going to backtrack and say, okay, you know what? 5 deals is fine with me. I can live with 5 deals. And in that case, you're going to pull the vision towards reality. So you have to have that creative tension. Changing your reality takes time. It is super frustrating. It is hard work. It requires you to change the way you think. So the agent that does 5 transactions a year thinks differently than an agent who does 20 transactions a year, who thinks differently than an agent who does 100 transactions a year. It's frustrating. You're going to have to learn, you have to pay attention to how you're thinking. So unfortunately, because it's hard to move your reality towards your vision, that's why so many people give up. That's why for many people, maybe some of you on the call, it's just going to be easier to just change the vision. It's just easier to do that and not have to deal with that tension that comes with moving yourself towards a new reality. We allow our goals to erode when we are unwilling to live with the tension, because that tension is the energy. And if you're not willing to live with that tension, you're going to end up having to change your goal. On the other hand, if we understand creative tension and we know how to let it exist in our lives, and we understand how to control our thoughts around it, our vision becomes an active force in our lives. It propels us towards the future we want. So it's not what vision is that matters. It's what vision does that matters. The vision creates the tension and it propels us. So you have to be able to master this creative tension that exists, transform the way that you view failure. Think of failure as just part of the learning process. So as you move towards and propel towards your goal, you're going to have to experience a great deal of failure. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the success. So as part of the tension that you are experiencing, because you have a difference between the vision and the reality, you're going to have to go out and take steps. You're going to have to execute on things you wouldn't have to do. You're going to have to force yourself to think differently. And in that process, you're going to fail a lot. And you have to be okay with that. You have to realize that failure is the opportunity to learn. It is your opportunity to find inaccurate pictures of your current reality. You're going to have to find strategies. You will find strategies that didn't work as you thought they were. But all along the way, you want to continue to make sure that your vision is clear. Most importantly, you want to realize that each failure you have is just an event. The full benefit of that event has just not yet turned to your advantage. So if you look at failure as part of the process, then every time you fail at something, you realize, okay, that's just that's a stepping stone. and it just hasn't yet turned into an advantage for me. The problem is that when it comes to resolving creative tension, moving closer to the vision instead of adjusting our vision to reality, there's two things that you're going to have to fight against. One, reality. It's easier to move towards a vision when we are repelled by what we have, the current reality. So it's harder to move when we don't hate our current reality. So that's something that you're going to have to think about if you have a bigger goal. So if your current situation is not terrible, closing 5 transactions a year, it's harder to move away from it because it's not that terrible. So that's one of the big challenges you'll have in this creative tension. Second problem you'll have is your reality is not reality. An accurate, insightful view of current reality is as important as a clear vision. Unfortunately, our reality is just a perception of our reality. So realizing that your current reality is not really your reality is the second challenge that you'll have to overcome. And the third problem is that in order to move towards something bigger than what you have right now, you're going to have to really start evaluating deeply embedded beliefs that you currently have about yourself. These are beliefs that you've probably had since you were 5 years old. You're going to have to start evaluating those beliefs. So we've talked about vision. We've talked about this creative tension. So we've got vision, creative tension. The third part of it, the beliefs and the internal conflict. This is the third part to a 5-part series to achieving our personal self-mastery for 2022 is internal conflict. Personal, what are we thinking about ourselves? So I want you guys to pause for 1 second and read this to yourselves. I want you to say it out loud to yourselves. I can create my life exactly the way I want in all dimensions, work, family, relationships, community, and the larger world. There is nothing stopping me from having it at all. So I want you guys to say that to yourselves. Now, if you're like most of us, as you say that, you have these little voices that start to come through that says, you can't have it all. That little voice that says, you've never done that before. You think you're going to close 100 transactions next year and you just closed 5? You can't do that. That little voice that says, if it's possible to do, then how come you haven't done it already? Or the little voice that says, you can have some of your dreams, but not all. That's not reality. You can't have it all. That voice is the inner conflict, and that voice is what stopped you from getting to where you want to be already. So we got to start taming that voice. I love this picture. Bart Simpson saying, I will not obey the voices in my head. I will not obey the voices in my head. I will not obey the voices in my head. This is what you guys should be writing every single day. I will not obey the voices in my head that tell me I can't be and do and have everything I want. You cannot obey the voices that tell you it is not possible to go from 5 closings to 40 closings next year. You cannot obey the voices in your head, and it's going to be one of the hardest pieces of this puzzle to get through. Almost all of us have a dominant subconscious belief that we cannot fulfill our dreams. That's just, and it's something that's embedded in us since we're young, to not get your hopes up about stuff. And these are embedded in us as a protection mechanism so that we don't get hurt, but they don't really serve us when we're going after a really big goal. For us to step towards our vision, we have to start changing those beliefs. We have to start changing those little voices. We have to start tuning them out or changing them, because as you step forward towards your vision, you're going to have 2 choices: to tame those voices or start stepping backwards towards changing that vision. The most important sale, and this is so important, and I know we're already running out of time, but I have a couple more pieces, and it's going to be worth it if you can hang in for a few more minutes. We're salespeople. We are salespeople. All 750 agents at Lair, we're salespeople, and we're really good at selling to other people, but sometimes we're not so good at selling ourselves to ourselves. Your most important sale in life is to sell yourself to yourself. So really important as we move into the new year is I started today saying that you'll never be more than who you believe yourself to be. So if you're going to practice sales skills, practice it on yourself. You must sell yourself. Our self-image and our habits tend to go together. Change one and you automatically change the other. And these are all like this, like I said, this should be a 2 or 3 hour program, but we get a lot of people that come on to this meeting every month, and this is an important message for you guys. As you start changing the voices in your head, you're going to also start changing daily habits. And as you start to change the habits, you're going to start to change the reality that is going on in your life. Okay, next part, we're moving through those circles, is that you have to become a truth seeker. So we talked about the vision, the conflict, those internal voices that we have. Well, if you're going to achieve a big goal next year, then you have to become a truth seeker. That means when that little voice tells you stuff about yourself, you're going to have to dig in and say, do I really believe that about myself? And why do I believe it about myself? We must have a relentless willingness to root out the ways we limit or deceive ourselves from seeing what is, and we must challenge our own theories of why things are the way they are. We are in a prison. We are in a self-imposed prison because of the thoughts we have. And that's why the only way that you're going to get from 5 transactions to 20 or 20 to 100 is you have to break out of the prison of your own thoughts. There are patterns of behavior that we live by. Once we could see those patterns, we can break them to move closer to our vision. One of the best movies this time of year is The Scrooge, the Ghost of Christmas Past, the Ghost of Christmas Present, and the Ghost of Christmas Future. The beauty of that movie is the ability to look at yourself, like step outside of yourself and see yourself. You're going to have to become your own Scrooge. You're going to have to be the person that steps outside yourself to look at what you are seeing and believing and questioning it. You're going to have to do that so that you can move towards a truth. And then next, use your subconscious. So as we move through all the steps to personal self-mastery for 2022, as you start noticing the voices in your head and what they're telling you about yourself, as you become a salesperson who sells yourself first, as you become that person, you will start to become that truth seeker who says, wait a second, what I believe about myself is not a truth. It was something that was embedded in me from many years ago. And now you could start to change your subconscious. So we mostly operate subconsciously. So we have learned responses that really do not serve us. When we have a huge goal, our mind often gets crowded with challenges and obstacles that we face along the way. Instead, we need to ignore the clutter, and we must separate what we truly want from what we think we need to do to achieve it. So I want you to just think for a second about these mental models that you have. Mental models are the images, assumptions, and stories which we carry in our minds of ourselves, other people, institutions, and every aspect of the world. The mental models, the subconscious mental models we live by, distort our perception of everything. Humans cannot navigate through the complex environments of our world without cognitive mental maps or shortcuts. And all of these mental maps are flawed. So our brains are like, we have these reptilian minds that create shortcuts for us. But you have to realize, as if you want to achieve a bigger goal next year, you have to know where your mind is creating a shortcut and how it is serving you or not serving you. The difference between mental models explains why 2 people can observe the same exact thing and describe it totally different. They're paying attention to totally different details. The scary part is that we use these mental models, these shortcuts, to interpret everything around us in our lives, and then we act according to these flawed interpretations. So how do you break a mental model? For many of us, our vision and goals are never realized because they conflict with deeply held internal images of how the world works, images that limit us to familiar ways of thinking and acting. Our models determine not only how we make sense of the world, but how we take action. So, for example, if you have a mental model that your belief is most people are not trustworthy, then you're going to operate different than somebody who believes everybody is trustworthy. If you have a mental model that most people are not loyal, then you're going to operate somebody different than somebody that thinks people are loyal. Now, a lot of these things were embedded in us in like grammar school. Maybe you had somebody that betrayed you in grammar school, and then because of a model that was created in your brain back then, you're now operating on that today. All you have to know is you have to realize it so that you can break through the model and realize where it is not serving you. Although people do not always behave congruently with their theories, what they say, they do behave congruently with their theories and use their mental models. So people have two different things. They have a spouse theory. So many people say, I never judge anyone, but their mental model is they actually do judge people. So we say things, we believe, so we say we're this type of person, but the way we operate is a different way. That's because of these shortcuts, these mental models. Our mental models affect what we see. So human beings observe the world selectively, and what they observe has everything to do with years and years and years of mental programming. The problem is the mental models are simplifications. They work at a subconscious level, and so they determine a great deal of what we do daily without us ever realizing it. So if I have a mental model that all people care about is the bottom line pricing of things, then that's going to change the way I do my business. So if my mental model is that all people care about is price, then when I show up at a listing appointment, I'm going to show up differently, thinking about my commission and what I'm going to charge than somebody who doesn't have that theory in their own head. To decrease the creative gap between vision and reality, we just need to be aware of when mental models are dictating a result that we have. We have to be cognizant of it because we have to be looking for them. Mental models exist below our level of awareness, and they are often untested and unexamined. They are generally invisible to us unless we're looking for them. Once we could see the mental model happening, we can see how it is impacting our lives and then find ways to reframe the mental model so that they serve us in a better world. The skills that help us do this are just reflection and inquiry, asking yourselves why you do things the way you do and why you think the way that you do. Our ability to achieve results is eroded by our feelings that our beliefs are the truth, that the truth is obvious, our beliefs are based on real data, and the data we select is the real data. So everything we do is eroded by that. The ladder of inference. So really quickly, and this is the last piece of it. The ladder of inference is just the idea, and I'll give you a very simple example. Is the ladder of inference is, for example, have you ever sent an email to somebody and they don't respond right away, and all of a sudden your brain starts like coming up with all the reasons why that person's mad at you and they haven't responded, or if you sent a text to somebody and they don't respond right away, and now your brain starts calculating. It's called the ladder of inference, where based on things that have happened to you in the past, you start calculating in your own head why this person has not responded quickly. It's called the ladder of inference. What's scary about it is we do the ladder of inference every single day. So let's say, for example, I go on a listing appointment, I'm there for 2 hours, I tour the house, I have a cup of coffee, and I show my marketing presentation, my listing presentation. 15 minutes later, the husband arrives. He yawns 3 times and occasionally looks at his watch. He shares a story of their nightmare agent from 4 years ago who took 5 months to sell the house, and that they have to come way down on price, making him question the value of that agent. So you start creating an inference by the guy yawning, showing up late. So we start creating these inferences, and the fact that he shares a story about an agent he didn't like 5 years ago. Well, now our brain starts creating this whole cycle of why this guy doesn't like us as we're sitting there. And as we do this, we start saying, well, I'm going to lowball my commission in case, so that he's less likely to go with another agent. It's the ladder of inference. Maybe the guy just woke up late or was up all night with a baby that was crying, and he's yawning just because he's tired. He's sharing a story just because he wanted to share a story with you. It has nothing to do with you, but we internalize it and then we turn it into an interpretation, and that inference causes us to charge less. Same, we go to a class and we see a top producing agent share his blueprint for success. During the class, the agent mentions that he's been in the business for 10 years. He comes from a big family and he sits on the school committee. So now I assume that the reason he is successful is that he's been in business for 10 years, comes from a big family, and he sits on the school committee. Since I haven't been in business for 10 years and I don't have a big family and I don't sit on the school committee, I cannot learn something from the agent, or worse, I believe I cannot be a top producing agent. This is all going on can be going on in your head. And so you're missing an entire class as you are calculating these inferences without even realizing it. So it really comes down to reflection and inquiry. Ask yourself to test the assumptions upon which you are drawing conclusions. Notice when you are making leaps of abstraction, that you are leaping to a conclusion for no reason. Inquire and ask questions. So here's the 5 pieces: vision, creative tension, internal conflict, be a truth seeker, and then use your subconscious. That's the 5. And then just to show it to you in how it all operates in getting to your bigger goal for next year's. The vision is I want to do 20 transactions a year next year. The creative tension is I currently only do 7 to 10 transactions. The internal conflict is I'm shy and can't network. I'm not able to drive on highways, for example. I have all these reasons. I don't have a big network, a big sphere of influence. And then be a truth seeker. I'm not that bad at networking. People like me. I can drive on highways. And then use your subconscious. Are your thoughts tricking you into believing that you can't do something? So really analyzing all those thoughts. So that's it for today. I know I ran way over on our monthly meeting, but I thought this was really interesting and important content for you guys as we go into 2022. So I want to thank everybody for sticking around for such a long meeting. If you are interested in, like I said, this should be like a 90-minute, 2-hour program. I've condensed it down to keep it as short as possible. But if you love all of this, I'll work on a much longer class. But in the meantime, there's 2 great books. One is Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, and then The Fifth Discipline by Peter Senge. So with that, I want to thank everybody for another great sales meeting, and we will see you next year. Thank you to Matt and Courtney, and then thank you, Sergio, for helping us today. Have a great day, everyone.